to another episode of Surgeons' Lives. I'm your host, John Monson. My guest today is Tim Pawlik, who is the Urban Meyer and Shelley Meyer Chair for Cancer Research and the Surgeon-in-Chief at Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. Tim is a surgical oncologist by background who went to medical school in Boston at Tufts, did his residency at the University of Michigan, and a surgical oncology fellowship at MD Anderson in Texas before commencing his faculty career in Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, where he spent 5 years. He rose to division chief in Hopkins before assuming his chair's role in Ohio State some 7 years ago. He's been on a program of building and more building in Ohio State, and he's one of the younger generation of academic surgeons and has quite a lot of interesting things to say about the modern way of approaching the job of a chairman, as well as his passion for sport and, interestingly enough, Koi Carp. So sit back and listen and enjoy and watch, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and send your comments. I'm John Monson, and this is Surgeons' Lives.
Hey, John. Sorry I'm a little bit late.
No problem. Tim, thank you very much for thanks for joining. We've a little bit of background noise. I hope it isn't too you can't hear too much of it. Thanks so much for joining another edition of Surgeons' Lives, as I've rather grandly called it, which is really just a series of interviews with surgeons from all walks of lives and specialties and locations around the world, talking about a little bit about their career, but also some of the other stuff that makes them tick. And I really appreciate time out of your busy day. What I have asked people to do, and I'll ask you to do, because it's an easy segue to start off, is to just give us a little summary of your early life and career, starting with the words "I was born in."
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks, John, for reaching out to me and talking with me today. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. So yeah, I mean, I was born in Massachusetts. I was born in Lawrence, Methuen area. Both my parents are pretty blue collar. My dad is a used car salesman, mechanic, and my mom's my mom. My mom came from a large family, didn't have a lot of resources, and she wanted to go to college but wasn't able to because of her financial situation. My dad, on the other hand, went to college for a week, but hated it, and then just dropped out and wanted to be a mechanic and a used car salesman, and then joined his father. So it's a family business. My brother now is in the business with my dad. It's been there for maybe like 60 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I grew up, I see all the cars behind you, John. You look like you're an aficionado.
Well, my dad was a used car salesman and mechanic.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, unlike yourself, who apparently, took to it, I know nothing about cars because I had a father and a brother who knew a lot about cars. So, I basically relied on their expertise. But, they basically, it's a kind of the classic story where, since neither of my parents went to college, they wanted us to go to college.
Yeah.
And I'm one of four. I have two sisters and one brother, and grew up and benefited from my dad and my mom's hard work, and was lucky and fortunate enough to go to a great high school and a great college. So
where did the doctoring come from?
Well, I say, I grew up, I'm Irish and I'm Catholic. So my mother wanted me to be a priest, number one. If I wasn't a priest, I'd be a dentist. And the third choice was a doctor. So I kind of made her happy, but it was, this idea, of, kind of, 30, 40 years ago, right? That, they wanted me to be in a profession, and they kind of cultivated that, my kind of love. And then I kind of came to it a little bit later. In college I was a theology major, and a biology major. I actually thought pretty hard about becoming a priest when I was in high
Yeah.
school. I was, fairly religious, and but decided that calling wasn't right for me. And then in college, with my double major, biology, theology, I worked at a number of, I went to school at Georgetown in DC. I worked at a number of clinics in downtown DC, free clinics. Being a phlebotomist, I worked in kind of inner city DC drawing blood, at a Washington DC free clinic. Really got to see firsthand, how social determinants of health can impact patients' lives, and
Yeah.
said that this is something that I wanted to, lean into, and where I wanted to have impact. And that's why I kind of got interested in medicine.
The true Irish family, the other two career options were, being a nun
Yeah,
and a policeman,
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
a lot of families, when I was growing up in the west of Ireland, would have all of the above in the family,
Uh-huh.
and there would be
Yeah.
one left behind on the farm,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you know how it is. So
Um, so I grew up in Massachusetts and Georgetown, and then medical school.
yeah, so then when I was towards the end of my Georgetown career, I applied for medical school. I have a younger brother, 9 years younger than myself. So we kind of never grew up together because we just kind of missed each other,
Yeah.
if you will,
Mm.
right? So I wanted to get back to Boston, because he was in college by this point. And so I went back to Boston. I went to Tufts Medical School,
Mhm.
downtown Boston, Chinatown. And at this point, I was very interested in going into primary care, and kind of working in, kind of needy environments. So I did an MPH at that time, an MD MPH. This is back when MPHs weren't as in vogue.
Yep.
I think Tufts had one of the first combined MD MPH programs. And I was really learning about like the food pyramid, anti-diarrheal therapy, real basic,
Yeah.
primary care, public health stuff. And as part of that, I actually spent a summer in the Dominican Republic, in the mountainside, and kind of Western Dominican Republic on the border of Haiti. And me and one of my medical school classmates, we literally got dropped off by a pickup truck, and no running water, no electricity, cinder block, small medical facility. We were the only two people staffing it, and we lived there for 2 months. And then 2 months later, they came back and picked us up. And during that time, we, did a lot of public health stuff in the village, talked about, nutrition, basic health, things like that. But it was an incredibly enriching experience. But then I came back and I did my surgery rotation, and I fell in love with surgery. So I had a complete kind of pivot away from primary care and public health, and just fell in love with surgery. And then the rest is history, so to speak.
So when you think back over that time frame, and also subsequently, of course, can you think back to when you first, with the benefit of hindsight, maybe when you first identify or recognize any influence of mentors in what you were doing?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think when I was at Tufts, Bill Mackey, who was a vascular surgeon at Tufts, went on to become chair, and actually, sadly, Dr. Mackey recently passed away. But I think, I rotated on vascular surgery, and I remember him being an early inspiration to me, as far as being a technically excellent surgeon, yet also someone who had incredible bedside manner, and also just the way he comported himself, handled himself, the way he interacted with colleagues, residents, medical students, patients. It was just, someone like, I want to be like that person. So I think, he was early inspiration. And I think I had a great clinical exposure as a medical student at Tufts. Again, this was a little bit back in the day where there weren't as many ancillary staff or allied health professionals. So, I mean, we were doing a lot, right? We were, putting in IVs, putting in A lines as medical students, helping out in the OR. So you got early exposure to a lot of hands-on experience. And I think that was really motivating, and it was very inspirational to be able to, help people kind of using our hands. And, I like this concept of like the laying on of hands. And I think there's something very special, mystical, powerful of how we as surgeons heal people through touch. And that really spoke to me. And that's what very early on motivated my interest in surgery.
I think, a fun fact, I think I'm correct in saying that the last disease that was said to be cured by the laying on of hands in the UK was scrofula, and it was the laying on of the king's hands. I think obviously the treatment of tubercular neck glands has moved on a little from there, but I take the point. I take the point about the touch and patient contact. I talked to an academic colleague of yours for one of these recently, who shall remain nameless, unless you watch the podcasts, obviously. But he was a medical student in a well-known academic medical center in Baltimore, that you may have heard of. And he said that when he was there, what he realized was that he loved surgery, but at least from that initial experience, he didn't like the people doing it. And he was determined that wherever he went, that was not going to be the culture that he wanted to pursue, etc. And now you're a chairman, and having seen multiple versions of culture, and you have to lead culture. Culture comes from the top, and all of that. What's been your experience over your career in terms of the way culture is in surgery and has changed?
Yeah, I think it has changed over time. I think I think it's a complicated and nuanced story. I tend to be an optimist and feel that over time, I think people generally, the way they comport themselves in surgery has changed. Although in the past, I would say, there were a lot of great people in the past. They're like everything. Maybe there were some bad actors and people who didn't bring their best selves every day to work. But that being said, I just got done talking to the medical students today, or M2s, about surgery. And, I really believe in this idea that, you can be excellent. You can do great, innovative things, deliver great care, be at the top of your game, be number one, and still have a good time doing it. Do it with the smile on your face and have fun, right? And I think that that's the type of culture that we try to cultivate here at Ohio State. I always say, like, make no doubt about it, I want to be number one, right? I want to deliver the best care in the world and have the best outcomes in the world, and have, people who are on the cutting edge with regards to clinical trials, basic science research, health services research, best faculty, best residents. At the same time, I want to have fun. I want to be around people who want to have fun. And I think sometimes in the past, it was kind of framed as an either or. And that, you had to be miserable. If you weren't miserable, you weren't working hard enough or something. And I think that we've just realized now that, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of one another. And I think also there's a greater understanding of the different paths that people can take.
Yeah.
And I really believe that in the past, we had like a couple paths, there was maybe like the basic science path, right?
Yep.
And like everyone was driven into like a very narrow conception of who they are, who they could be, and what surgery looked like. And when you do that, you frequently find people who aren't doing what they're passionate about because they've been driven down a path that maybe isn't right for them. And then you can get burnout, you can get dissatisfaction, and you can undermine culture. And I think when you create an environment that is more open and conducive to people following their passions and doing what they love, and I tell people I have no preconceived notion of what impact looks like for you. I want people who want to have impact, where that is, what that manifests itself. That's for us to discuss and for you to decide. And I think, just as Daniel Pink alludes to, I think if you have mastery, if you have some element of self-determination, self-control, and you have purpose, then you're going to find a healthier work environment, a healthier culture, and people who are giving discretionary effort and doing it with a smile on their face.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. It's changed. I mean, when I was in the early stages of my academic career, as was pointed out to me by somebody, if your project did not include the words "and its gene sequence" at the end of it, it was not going to get funded, because that was, the DNA navigation was the flavor of the day. And, I was a molecular biologist in early career as an academic, and then I changed to health services research. And, if you, in my early days, most of the powerhouse chairs ran big basic science labs. And, now, people like you who have and Justin Dimick and others who have strong health services and healthcare delivery programs are much more widely based, number one. And number two, in addition to people being miserable, I think, 20, 30 years ago, I think there was also, there was a feeling that if you were excellent, it was okay to be nasty. And the flip side, of course, was that people's nastiness was excused on the basis of saying, "Oh, of course, he's a wonderful surgeon," which, is absolutely, not a necessary connection. You don't have to be an asshole just to be a good surgeon. But there was a lot of that. It was, the sharp elbows were, almost considered a badge of honor.
Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays, I think people are really looking for individuals who are team oriented.
Yeah.
And I always have this notion that, it's not about compromising, right? It's about, again, both and, right? You can both be an upper echelon leader and a nice person, and be excellent, and advocate for your patient, and have great surgical outcomes, right? And I think, this idea of, I'm doing it because I'm advocating for my patient, or I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, I think is a false dichotomy. And also, I think that we need to challenge people that, the real kind of challenge is again doing both, right? Because anyone can do one or the other, right? Either kind of be overly Pollyanna-ish and then not really accomplish anything, and or be kind of a jerk and just drive everything in, be so results oriented that you just leave a lot of interrelationship carnage along the way. And really, what we're looking for in this era is people who can do both. Build relationships, maintain relationships, and again, not compromise, but be an agile leader and think about how, out of maybe this disagreement, can we find a way to create added value, not compromise, which suggests less, but if anything, difference of opinion can sometimes be synergistic and highlight the shortcomings in both perspectives,
Yeah.
such that there's added value in a new joint perspective as we move forward. So I think those are the type of things that I think about, try to spend a lot of time working on as a leader, and then also the things that we try to cultivate here amongst our faculty, staff, and trainees.
So, can you remember when you first thought that you'd like to be a chairman? In the early ambition, just an inkling in your mind, a seed. And then can you remember when you decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do? I mean, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, they're often distance apart, but when did your academic ambition? Can you remember when it started?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. And again, I was telling the M2s about this. I try to live in the moment, to try to do the job that I am in to the best of my ability. And I have a firm belief that if I do that, I will hopefully achieve success. I will help the people who I'm supposed to be helping as a leader in my current role. And then to some degree, if I do a good job, that will get recognized and
Sure.
other opportunities will open up in the future. So I can honestly say that I never sat around thinking about like, I want to be chair. And I think, even the way I frame it is like, I wanted, at some point I realized I wanted to do the things that only a chair could do.
Right.
So I didn't necessarily want to be a chair in the sense of like,
Yeah.
whatever chair came open, I was just going to take it because I wanted to be a chair, right? Or I wanted to be X, Y, or Z. Because I jokingly say that and $3.50 will get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? So it's more about like, how can I have impact? And I think that, it's kind of been iterative for me in different stages of my life. And, kind of getting started, wanting to have impact in the clinical space, wanting to have impact in the research space, and then moving on and wanting to have some impact, kind of at the early administrative level, at the division level when I was division chief at Hopkins, and then realizing, as I got exposed to departmental aspects of executive leadership in my division role, I began to realize that, I needed another mountain, right? I wanted another challenge. I wanted to stretch myself. And then I began to realize that there were some things that I wanted to do that only a chair could do. And then that's when I started looking for chair opportunities.
Sure.
So hopefully that makes sense to you.
No, it does.
I'm an ambitious person. I'm not going to lie. We're all ambitious
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that, it's kind of like there's people who are trying to, climb the ladder, so to speak. I tend to think of myself not as one of those people, but I just try to excel where I'm at, and then,
So there's
take step by step.
There's no whiteboard in the office with this year's project or this year, this is etc. Some people are like that. I talked to a colleague of mine in England surgeon who became a member of the House of Lords so he could become a junior health minister, and he's been a longtime friend of mine, and he pointed out to me that he realized there were things that he wanted to do to make a difference, and in order to do that he had to accept that role. It wasn't that he set out to become a member of the House of Lords. It's just exactly that he realized that if he was going to play in that political space to make major healthcare differences, that's what he had to do.
I think that's a great analogy. And I think, as far as wanting to build programs, recruit faculty, mentor faculty, help build faculty's careers, have impact in healthcare delivery on a larger scale. There's certain roles that just afford you more of an opportunity.
Yeah.
And people are, frequently ask me like, "Oh man, you got a lot of degrees. Why you got all those degrees?" One thing about me is I think I have a lot of intellectual curiosity, and I also can sometimes get bored. So I think some of it literally is like I do something for a while. I feel like, I've made my contribution, and then I'm kind of like, what else? Like, what's the next mountain? I like, getting in there. I'm not like a maintainer. I'm more of a like a builder. That's where I love to be. And I think that's also some of the reason why I've looked for other opportunities when I feel like I've contributed, maybe not as much as I could, but like it's getting asymptotic, if you know what I mean. And then I also think, just opening up opportunities for other people, because if you occupy a certain role forever, then you don't give anyone else a chance.
No, well, that's a conversation I've had with many people on this podcast. It's a little early to be asking you, but about retirement thoughts, obviously. But I the same conversation. I often say to people, I was a chairman in England for 15 years. I think I did a good job for probably 12 of them. And that doesn't mean to say that the last 3 were the ones where I didn't do the best job, but whether I did or I didn't, I do have a quite a strong belief in let somebody else have a go. In that space. I mean, I think you shouldn't, hog it so much, number one, and B, you need to let other people bring some fresh views, opinions, and thoughts. And I'm not convinced that people can be at the top of their game for 25 and 30 years.
Yeah, or even, I can be at the top of my game, but it's my game, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and so, just different perspectives, different thoughts, because, even if I'm performing at the top of my game, like, I'm a big sports fan. Maybe, I got my moves, right? Maybe my move is the sky hook, or my move is a 3-point shot, but like I got my moves. And like every so often, right, you need to like, rebuild. You need to rebuild the team, right, to sustain excellence and get a different perspective, a different look. I also think that's important. Why, as a leader, is like not to micromanage, right? To try to, as a leader, surround yourself by great people, give them resources, be supportive of them, meet with them, and help them. Yet let them do their job. I have a sign here in my office. I'm staring right at it of Bill Belichick, because I'm a big Patriots fan, and it says "Do your job," right? And it's just this mantra of like, if everyone on the team is doing their job, that's how you win championships. And so, hopefully, you'd have to ask the people who work with me, whether I do that or not. But I try to give people the latitude and the breadth in their lane so they can drive, right? Because no one likes to be micromanaged. And I think that also helps create different perspectives, because if you create an environment where people can do their thing, and then you hire people who have different life experiences, different perspectives, and are diverse with regards to race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, then it can become a very rich environment, which will make the organization stronger.
And this is just an observation from the outside, and it's not. I'm not picking on you, because it's as you say, it's a rebuilding process. The new head coach comes in, they will either follow a pathway of rebuilding totally, or they will rebuild in pieces. But you've been in Columbus for what, 7 years now?
7 years.
And from the outside, you've rebuilt, you've cleaned house a bit, whatever term you want to use. That's a big piece of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been lucky and blessed to be here at Ohio State. This is a great institution, and I was really fortunate to come in after Dr. Ellison and Dr. Higgins, Bob Higgins, who ironically went to Hopkins. Bob and I were like ships passing in the night, and actually Bob had a big part about me coming here, because he had nothing to say but amazing things about Ohio State. And, and I would kind of characterize it, maybe not like cleaning house. We have many people who are still here when I
Yeah.
first showed up 7 years ago, but a little bit of a transformative
Yeah.
journey. And maybe a reinvigoration of who we are as a department. We've recruited a ton over the last 7 years. I think by last count, like 60 people, 65
Yeah.
people,
Huge.
and a renewed focus on clinical programs of distinction, growing our clinical volume, and then really a solid focus and emphasis on patient safety, quality, and then also along with that, really focusing on research,
Yeah.
innovation,
Yeah.
discovery. I never miss an opportunity to note that we're top 10 in NIH funding amongst all departments of surgery in the country. And then we have very large education programs. We have a very robust general surgery residency program, but then we also have an I-6 program in vascular, an I-6 program in cardiac, and then a multitude of different fellowships in all the different disciplines, from surgeon to transplant to vascular to trauma to colorectal. So again, I've been incredibly blessed to be a Buckeye, and it's been a fantastic journey over the last 7 years.
So, I'm always interested in the concept of institutional loyalty and indeed loyalty per se. Loyalty depends on who you're loyal to. Whether it's you're loyal to your country, and then loyal to your state, and loyal to your town. I mean, it gets down to different levels. Right now, you're standing in front of me, fully branded, with the Ohio State, and wrapped in the lapel and over on the wall, and fully on message, fully on branded, and credit to you, wrapped in the flag of Buckeye Nation. But 8 years ago, you were wrapped in the flag of Hopkins. And everything that stood for I should say, with a storied history in one thing or another. Did you find that an easy transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm incredibly grateful for all the different institutions that I've had the real privilege to be at, and I never take for granted that these different institutions and different people, whether it was Mike Mulholland at Michigan, or Rafe Pawlik at MD Anderson, or Julie Freischlag at Hopkins, they took a chance on me, right? They took a chance on me, and I never forget that, and I always am in their gratitude. So I'm very indebted to all those institutions, and they hold a special place in my heart. That being said, I love being a Buckeye. It's hard to describe, but it is contagious. It is infectious. This is a wonderful place to be at. I love how it's a land grant state institution, and has a very palpable mission-based orientation. And I love the spirit of Buckeye Nation. And it was very easy transition here. And now, even though I trained at that school up north, I was there for 5 years, and I've been here for 7 years. So my time here at Ohio State has actually elapsed the amount of time that I spent in Ann Arbor. Again, though, that being said, I highly value all my experience at Michigan, and we have a great relationship, Ohio State and Michigan departments of surgery.
A better relationship than on the football pitch.
Yes, that's true. They've got the better of us in the last couple of years, but excited to see what this year holds.
So I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're standing talking to me, are you?
I am.
Yeah, are you a standing desk guy?
I am now. I just got this new standing desk a couple months ago, and what I've been told is that sitting is the new smoking. So, I take the stairs and I stand at my desk, and I take a baby aspirin, and that's and I call it a day.
And you're planning on immortality.
That's right. That's right.
But right now, if you to go back to the sporting analogy, if you had to sign a contract for a day, retire, right now you're kind of retiring as a Buckeye because it's superseded all the other years, etc. And so that's a good thing. That's where you are. Are you optimistic for the future of academic surgery?
I am. I'm very optimistic. I'm an optimist by nature. And I have this quote that hangs in my office right here by Ernest Shackleton, who was on endurance and got stuck in the
Yes.
Antarctic waters, and that's a great book. But one of the favorite quotes in that book is that optimism is true moral courage. And I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to be realistic, and to be honest with ourselves about the situation, yet to be optimistic. And I think, he epitomized that. He truly was a realist about the situation that he was in with his other 29 men in Antarctica and, being stuck there. Yet he was optimistic that they were going to make it through it. And I think that optimism played a huge role in the incredible story about how every single person on that ship survived that event.
Yeah.
So I am optimistic. I think that when I meet with our medical students, like I did this morning, when I meet with our residents, when I meet with my junior faculty, how could you not be optimistic? These people are incredibly smart, motivated, passionate, outstanding in so many different aspects, and really just wonderful, nice people. And again, I think I love how we're more broadly conceiving what it means to be a surgeon. And so I think that we will continue to reinvent, what academic surgery looks like, just like we did, when everyone was a basic scientist, and then, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, we reinvented it to now suddenly some people could be health services researchers, right?
Yeah.
Yet there's still going to be iterative reinventions and reimaginations of what academic medicine looks like. And so I think that's exciting. And I think all the technology that we have at our disposal now to accelerate learning, to accelerate discovery and innovation is really an exciting time for academic surgery.
And I think in the last couple of decades, or the last 3 or 4 decades, have seen an incredible explosion of clinical changes. I started my training when we were operating on, peptic ulcer 5 days a week. And that's not only has the operation disappeared, but the disease has disappeared. And, I'm not convinced that I have a strong suspicion that a newly minted colorectal surgeon will not be operating on colorectal cancer by the end of their career. I think it's dramatically changed in the last 15 years, and molecular medicine is real. I don't think it's quite hit the organs that you play with, but I've no doubt it will. But I think surgeons and doctors in general are pretty good at reinventing themselves. If it isn't duodenal ulcers today, it's bariatrics, and if it isn't bariatrics tomorrow, it's something else. So I agree with you. I think it changes, and people have to change with it. So now, when the lights go out and you go home, part of course, being a chairman is that your chairman's work spills over into, your home life, because you play a leadership role, at social events and things like that, etc. But, what does, as you say, I have a foolish habit with breaking cars and things like that. But what does Tim Pawlik do when he's not thinking great things?
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed. I have a great family. You know, my wife Megan. I have 4 children: Katie, Molly, Emma, and Michael. So a lot of my time is family time,
Mm-hmm.
and spending time with my daughters, my son. My son in particular is at an age where he's travel baseball. So I,
Mm-hmm.
spent Memorial Day weekend in Kentucky. 3 nights, 4 days at baseball tournaments, and which I love. I like to travel. I'm lucky. I do have an opportunity to travel internationally, colleagues and friends. And I think to me, that's the best part of academic medicine is the people.
Yeah.
And not only, I love all the people in the United States, but I love having had the opportunity to travel and build a network around the world. And my children are of an age where I can take them. So I taken my daughter to Portugal with me. I just got back from Rio with my other daughter, and so I love doing that, spending time with them, traveling abroad. It's a great time too, because when you have 4 children, and you're at home, you're with all four, but when you travel, you get to be with one and
Mm.
kind of have a different kind of interaction with them, relationship with them. And so I really enjoy that. And then I'm a big sports fan. One of the things I love to do is I'm a big consumer of sports. And I also travel to see games. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll go to different states and cities to go see football games, basketball games, things like that. I've been to 3 Super Bowls and 2 NBA finals and the World Series. And unfortunately, I have not been to a Stanley Cup because my Bruins let me down this year. But that's also very fun bonding experiences and creates kind of moments
Yeah.
with a family that I love to do.
Yeah, I interviewed Jim Fleshman not that long ago. He kind of has a semi-secret bucket list of attending every major league baseball stadium.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, and he's I think he's can't remember the number, but I think he's more than three-quarters of the way through. Um,
Oh, that's
um,
great. Yeah, I don't know if I've done that. I want to get to every continent. So I've been to 6 continents. I need to get to Antarctica because
that's
I
the
want
one you're
to.
missing.
That's the one I'm missing.
Oh
A,
yeah,
because I know I've been to
yeah,
all 50 states, but I want to get to every continent. And part of that also is, kind of my love of Shackleton as a leader.
yeah. But
Seriously, I'd love to go down there and just, kind of hear about the history of that, like in
mm,
the moment in that space.
hopefully
So that's
not
one of
repeat
my
his hopefully
aspirations.
not repeat his experience. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, again, it's a little early to ask you this, but sometimes people change. How do you think you would like to be remembered, and how do you think you will be remembered?
Yeah, I don't know how it will be remembered. I think hopefully I'll be remembered as just a good person. That's ultimately that's what I hope, that I did right by people, and maybe you didn't always agree with me, you didn't see it my way, but that my heart was always in the right place, that I'm trying to do right by people. That I genuinely want to help other people fully self-actualize their hopes, aspirations, and desires. And just like I try to be the best person that I can be, I want to try to help them be the best person that they can be. Do I horribly fail? Yes, I do. I'm
Sure.
not a great
Yeah.
person a lot of times, and I need to work on myself, but that's my aspirational goal. And that's what I hope that I'm remembered by, that, this whole idea of preach often, use words seldomly. So hopefully the life that I live is, that people say, that he's a good person, he's
Yeah.
trying. And I know that he means well, and that's what means the most to me, because the other stuff falls away. The
Yeah.
other stuff
Yeah.
falls away.
Yeah.
But people remember how you treated them, how you interacted with them, the relationships. I always say in life, it's usually about relationships and money. You peel a lot of things away. It's about relationships and money. And I truly believe that at the end of the day, it's about relationships.
Yeah.
It's about how you
Sure.
treat people, interact with them, and just being genuine also. And that's why I love to know people's stories, where they're from, you know what I mean, what makes them tick, and unpack that stuff. That's what hopefully I'll
So,
be.
two quick questions to finish. Well, actually, two things to finish with, but one of them is a single question, which is, do you have something you can tell us that nobody knows about Tim Pawlik?
That's a hard one because I don't have any secrets. I think most people who know me that I'm a very straight shooter. And I don't really have anything that people don't know about me. I mean, I love koi fish. Maybe a lot of people don't know that, but I have had I love fish. I had a koi pond when I lived in Maryland, and I have a koi pond here in Columbus, and that's one of my passions. I love to stare at fish. So, frequently I'll be outside staring at fish, and my wife Megan will be like, "Get in the house! Stop looking at the fish! What are you doing?" A lot of people don't get it, but I love fish.
Yeah, he did. He didn't. He didn't answer this. He didn't give me this answer to the question because I hadn't asked him. But I told Justin Dimmick when he was describing his early life that he just answered that question, which is that he used to knit while at lectures as a medical student. And I said, "You just told me the question nobody knows about you."
Yeah.
And whereupon we moved swiftly on. So now here's the final just quick fire thing, which is a minute little thing, which these are simple questions for which there's no right answer other than the fact that quite clearly I know the answer, and you don't have time to think about them. Are you ready?
Sure.
Baseball or football?
Baseball.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
PC or Mac?
Mac.
Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Home or away?
Away.
Beach or mountain?
Mountain.
Tim, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. In due course, when stuff happens and I edit out all the slanderous statements you've made about your former colleagues, etc., or insert them in with some AI, it'll come out, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
When it's coming out, but it's the ones that are out at the moment are on the Surgeons Lives YouTube channel, and the first one was Jeff Matthews, who talking about his academic career and of course his music career as well. He's just released his latest EP.
Yeah,
he's a hard act to follow, isn't he?
It is. It is.
And
all I have is koi fish. I can't play an instrument.
Exactly.
I'm just a simple guy staring at fish.
So I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been great fun.
Yeah, you bet, John. This is a great idea. I think it's wonderful that you're doing this, and I've really appreciated the time spent with you here today.